He returned home to find a widow and 2 children living there. What she said left him frozen. The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the quiet country roads into ribbons of silver. Daniel Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel as his pickup truck rolled toward the old farmhouse he hadn't seen in nearly 12 years. It was the only place he had ever called home. After serving overseas in the military and spending years working on oil rigs across different states, Daniel had finally decided it was time to return. His father had passed away 6 months earlier, leaving the family farm to him. There had been lawyers, paperwork, and countless delays, but today the property officially belonged to him. He expected dust. He expected silence. Instead, as he drove through the rusted gate, he froze. Children's bicycles leaned against the porch. Bright flowers bloomed in window boxes. Fresh laundry fluttered on a clothesline. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone was living here. Daniel parked his truck and stepped out slowly, his boots sinking into the wet gravel. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he muttered. As he approached the front porch, the front door opened. A woman stood there, holding a toddler on her hip while another little girl peeked from behind her skirt. She looked exhausted but beautiful in a quiet, ordinary way. Her dark hair was tied loosely, and worry instantly filled her eyes when she saw the stranger walking toward the house. "Can I help you?" she asked carefully. Daniel stared. "I think you're living in my house." The woman went pale. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Finally she whispered, "You're Daniel." His heartbeat skipped. "You know my name." Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Oh, no." She looked as though she'd seen a ghost. The little girl tugged gently at her mother's hand. "Mommy." The woman knelt beside her daughter. "Emma, sweetheart, would you take Noah inside for just a minute?" The little girl nodded, taking her baby brother's tiny hand before leading him into the house. The woman closed the door halfway and faced Daniel. "My name is Sarah. I've never heard of you." "I know. So why are you living here?" Sarah lowered her eyes. "Because your father invited us." Daniel frowned. "My father died." "I know. He never mentioned anyone." A painful smile crossed Sarah's face. "He wouldn't." Daniel folded his arms. "I think you'd better explain." Sarah hesitated before stepping aside. "Please, come inside." The farmhouse looked nothing like Daniel remembered. The cracked walls had been painted. The broken furniture had been repaired. Fresh curtains covered every window. Children's drawings decorated the refrigerator. For the first time in decades, the house actually felt alive. Sarah motioned toward the kitchen table. "Would you like some coffee?" "I'd rather have answers." She nodded. "I understand." She took a deep breath. "My husband, Michael, died 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "He was killed by a drunk driver." Daniel remained silent. "I was pregnant with Noah and had nowhere to go. So my father helped you." Sarah smiled sadly. "More than helped." She looked around the room. "He saved us." Daniel listened without speaking. "I met your father at church. He noticed Emma and me sitting alone every Sunday. He learned we were living in our car." Daniel's expression slowly changed. He couldn't bear the thought. "So he offered us the farmhouse." Daniel frowned. "This farmhouse." She nodded. "He said no family should ever be homeless." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Why didn't he tell me?" Sarah hesitated. "Because." She swallowed hard. "He didn't think you'd ever come back." Those words hit Daniel harder than he expected. He looked toward the old living room, where his father's rocking chair still stood. His father had waited for him. For years. Daniel had been too busy chasing promotions, overtime, and distant jobs to visit more than once every few years. Guilt settled heavily in his chest. Sarah continued quietly. "He refused to accept any rent. He only asked that I take care of the farm. So I planted vegetables. I repaired fences. I cleaned the house. I even painted the barn." Daniel remembered how neglected everything had looked when he left. Now it looked better than ever. "Still, it legally belongs to me now." Sarah nodded immediately. "I know. I received the lawyer's letter yesterday." Daniel looked surprised. "You did?" She reached into a drawer and handed him an envelope. "I've already started packing." His eyes widened. "You have? I would never steal someone's home." Daniel suddenly noticed several cardboard boxes stacked neatly near the hallway. The children really were preparing to leave. "When were you planning to go?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Tomorrow." "Where?" "I don't know." The simple answer echoed painfully through the quiet kitchen. "I'll find somewhere." I always do. Daniel looked toward the children's bedrooms. The tiny shoes by the doorway. The drawings taped proudly to the walls. The homemade birthday decorations still hanging in the dining room. This wasn't just a house anymore. It was their home. Emma suddenly peeked around the corner. Mommy. Sarah smiled. It's okay. The little girl looked at Daniel nervously. Are you taking our house? Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'll be good. I promise. I won't leave my toys everywhere anymore. You can even have my room. Daniel felt something break inside him. The child believed she was being punished. Sarah quickly hugged her daughter. No, sweetheart. It isn't like that. But Emma buried her face against her mother's shoulder. Daniel looked away, unable to watch. He had come expecting an empty farmhouse. Instead, he had walked into the lives of 3 people who had already lost everything once. Silence filled the room. Finally Daniel asked the question that had been growing in his mind since he arrived. Why did you recognize me? Sarah slowly reached into an old wooden cabinet. She removed a faded photograph. When she handed it to Daniel, his hands began to shake. It was an old picture of him in his military uniform. His father stood proudly beside him. The edges were worn from being held countless times. Sarah smiled through tears. Your father looked at this picture every single day. Daniel couldn't speak. He always said the same thing. What? Sarah's voice trembled. He said, one day my son will come home. Daniel stared silently at the photograph. Then Sarah whispered the words that left him completely frozen. He never stopped believing you'd forgive him. For the secret he kept about your mother.